Hello everybody, and welcome to Theology 101. Today we are going to talk about how God not only creates everything, but sustains everything. The theological term for this concept is called divine providence. First, let's define the word providence. Providence comes from the Latin root word where we get our English word video. So the Latin word means to see beforehand. However, theologians make a distinction between God's foreknowledge and God's providence. Even though providence can mean foreknowledge, God is doing something more than just looking ahead when talking about providence. The doctrine of divine providence says that God is in complete control of all things. He is sovereign over the universe, the earth, the nations and cultures, human successes and failures, and the protection of his people. Some theologians have referred to divine providence as continuing creation, which refers to God conserving his creation over time. Unlike deists who argue that God created the world like a watchmaker and no longer intervenes, divine providence says that God continually intervenes with his creation in order to preserve it. God is like cosmic glue that holds all things in the universe together. Now, there are three implications about divine providence. First, divine providence includes preservation. Look at Nehemiah chapter 9, verse 6. You alone are the Lord. You have made the heavens, the heaven of heavens with all their hosts, the earth and all that is on it, the seas and all that is in them. You give life to all of them, and the heavenly host bows down before you. Later, the author of Hebrews describes Jesus as the one who preserves all things. And he is the radiance of his glory and the exact representation of his nature and upholds all things by the word of his power. Notice that the author of Hebrews says that Jesus is the exact representation of God the Father, meaning that they share the same divine nature. And part of his divine nature includes Jesus' power to preserve all of creation. The second implication of divine providence is that divine providence works concurrently with human responsibility. What does this mean? Concurrence means that God cooperates with humans in every action as to direct them and cause them to act as they do. In other words, concurrence says that God and humans can act in the same event and produce a given outcome even if all the parties involved do not have the same intent. For example, in Job chapter 1, we see three different players involved in Job's suffering. Satan instigated Job's suffering, God allowed Job's suffering, and the Chaldeans attacked Job's family to cause them suffering. Satan intended to discredit Job, the Chaldeans intended to steal from Job, and God intended to vindicate Job's faith. There was a concurrence among them that Job should suffer, but each person involved had a different reason for this suffering. God's intent was good, while everyone else's was evil. So concurrence helps explain how God can allow evil without being the cause of evil. In case you want to know more about this topic, I will release a future video on this topic soon. The third implication of God's providence is that divine providence includes God's governance. Government is the continued activity of God whereby he rules over all things. Another term for this concept is called God's sovereignty. It is a picture of God as king ruling over everything that he created. Look at Psalm chapter 135 verses 6 through 7. Whatever the Lord pleases, he does. In heaven and in the earth, in the seas and in all deeps. He causes the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth. He makes lightnings for the rain, who brings forth the wind from his treasuries. So based on the truth of God's providence, there are two reasons why this matters for us today. First, everything has a purpose because nothing happens by chance. From our perspective, events may seem random, or things may work in our favor or against us for no reason. But from God's perspective, everything works according to his plan and for his purposes. That means that whatever you go through in life is not random or meaningless. Even the trials and the evil things that happen to you have a purpose to them. When your boss fired you for no reason, that event did not catch God by surprise. When you lost a loved one unexpectedly, that event did not catch God by surprise. Divine providence teaches us that not only does God know what you are going through, but also he is involved in it so as to direct it according to his intended will. Although we might not get an answer from God for why he allowed certain things to happen to us, as was the case for Job, we can rest assured that God will use whatever happened to us for his intended purposes. Look at the story of Joseph. God allowed Joseph's brother to kidnap him sell him as a slave, and then lie to their father for years about his death. What the brothers did was evil. Yet at the same time, all of their sin worked together for a greater good. Joseph ended up in Egypt, where he was eventually made the prime minister. Joseph used his position to protect his family and his nation from a 7-year famine. If Joseph had not been in Egypt before the famine began, millions of people, including his family, would have starved to death. How did God get Joseph to Egypt? He providentially allowed his brothers the freedom to sin, but worked through their sin to bring about his intended result. Joseph understood that everything in his life happened according to God's providence. As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. The second reason why divine providence matters for us today is because it teaches us that life does not go according to our plans, but God's plan. James, the half-brother of Jesus, tells us that we should not assume that our plans will always happen. Instead of just making plans, he says that we should always qualify our plans this way: if God wills. Think about a 5-year-old making a plan for his or her life. As a father, I know that my sons have a limited understanding of life, so their ideal picture of eating junk food every day will not turn out well for them. And there are times where as a father, I will need to override their plans with my plan. Divine providence teaches us that at times God will override our plans because he sees a better path for us than the one we are planning. This will be difficult for us to accept. I'm sure it was not Joseph's life plan to be sold into slavery. I know I never planned on my father passing away 3 years ago. I know you never planned the disappointments in your life. However, divine providence reassures us that when our plans do not go our way, God is planning something better for us because he is in full control. If you want to learn more about this topic, I'll leave a link to a recommended book below in the description box. In case you missed the last video about how science and the Bible can fit together, I'll leave a link for you here to watch. Until next time, see you.